Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ehab Nour. I'm a pre-sales consultant at Tripwire. Today our subject is regain control over your IT environment with a sophisticated file integrity monitoring and secure configuration management. Every organization is thinking about security and compliance. Today our solution will focus about one of Tripwire solution, which is Tripwire Enterprise. Tripwire Enterprise is a software solution, has four main components built in this software: policy management, integrity management, inspection and forensics, remediation and integration. This software, these four main components came with this software to help organization to know and help them to achieve the integrity monitoring and the changes over the network and over the organization infrastructure. With the policy management, it came also with this to help organizations to achieve the global standard secure configuration management. For an example, if you need to apply a PCI, ISO 27, CIS, so the policy management can help you to figure out what kind of secure configuration need to be implemented. And inspection and forensics. Also, inspection and forensics, it's one of the keys that can help organizations to detect the changes and get differential and historical view about the changes across the environment. So for an example, if you have changes from more than 1 year or 2 years, you can still, with Tripwire Enterprise, to get this information, and you can get a differential value between the current state and the old state. Remediation and integration, it came with a Tripwire Enterprise to help the team of the policy management to get what exactly the remediation and what exactly they need to be fixed. If something of secure configuration need to be implemented, we will tell you the remediation guidance, and you can make automatic remediation to help you to do this. And integrations, and this software, the Tripwire Enterprise, came with several kind of integrations with, for an example, the SIEM solution, the change management, in order to help you for this. The Tripwire Enterprise is focused in three business aspects: security, compliance, and IT operations. But how the Tripwire Enterprise can achieve and interact with these three teams: the security and compliance and IT operations. So, for the security, how we enable the security? First, we detect the unauthorized changes. By detecting the unauthorized changes, we can help the organization if there is something related to malware or something related to unauthorized change to one of your critical infrastructure. We can give you the who done this information or who changed this, what exactly the change, when this change happening, and all of this related to the business context. And number two, which is assess the configuration against the security policies. So the Tripwire, as we said, it came with a lot of big library of security policies against the global benchmarks. As I said, for PCI, ISO 27, NISA, NIST compliance, and NCA compliance, and HIPAA compliance, NERC, CIS, all of this is built in with thousands of control policies. You can apply the best practices. And to identify the security risks, we can help you to identify and discover the assets by integrating our Tripwire Enterprise with one of security products already we have, which is IP360, to identify and discover the assets and vulnerabilities. And absolutely, it can discover the malicious changes and help you to automate the risks and the workflow and make the remediation. And finally, deal with the security and data overload. So by Tripwire Enterprise, you can automate the manual processes, and you can deal with the change, and you can escalate the changes and get all of these changes with a business context. And you can do all of these parts by getting the manual processes, and you can deal with every change because you know already what exactly is the missing, what exactly the current configurations, what has been happened from, for an example, last day, last week, and last month. So you can get all of these changes. You can export the configuration if you want, and you can roll the backup if you need. To deal with the security overload, and all of these parts can help you to enable the security. And to achieve the compliance, we can help you to demonstrate the compliance standards with a comprehensive library, as we said, and reduce the time of the compliance. And what is reducing the time? Organizations, if they have just automated tool for the compliance, they always fail in one of the parts, which is the changes. So the changes maybe affect your compliance. Maybe one of your administrators one day, he is connecting with your critical infrastructure. He changed something regarding to the compliance by, for an example, closing Windows firewall port, for an example, changing firewall rule, for an example, edit some Windows services, for an example, in the Linux, change some configuration related to the SE Linux, for an example, and closed firewalls or change some ports in the Linux, in the network, maybe change something in the configuration, maybe closed port security. So all of these, it's related to the changes, but how about the compliance? So one day, if one of your security have failed or changed something, we can help you to trigger the compliance and can help you why I am not compliant, why I am not compliant, because someone maybe he is affect my critical infrastructure and security configuration. So just not only out of the box templates, we can help you to reduce the time spent on the compliance, because you know the changes that's happened in your organization in one software. And produce the data for audits and forensics can help you to logging the changes, and you can keep the historical changes with the detailed information who and when and what. And also by the differential view, you can get information what exactly the current configuration and what's from the example in the last month or the last year when this change is happening, and what's the best practices already implemented. Maybe your best practices it's already, or the good configuration you already make it for an example in 1 day or 1 month ago. So based on this, you can dig deep and know what exactly the changes and give detailed information and who and when and what and the historical changes, and maintain the compliance over time to continuously monitoring and do this and reporting the flag and about the remediation steps. So if you are failing to the compliance, if you are failing to the secure configuration, you can continuously monitoring all of these by making a continuous scheduled scan every, for an example, 1 hour or 1 week. You can give full detailed information, what exactly is the missing configuration on my systems, plus what exactly also the remediation steps I need to do. So for an example, if I tell you one day your firewall need to be open because you are missing a secure configuration in one of your Windows servers based on the PCI or ISO 27, so I will guide you how you enable the firewall. So for example, I can tell you, you can click start and Windows firewall settings, and you can enable the private and domain and public mode of the domain of the firewall. So you can enable the firewall by Tripwire, and you can by these steps. How about the IT operations? The IT operations, we can help you to ensure the system availability and speed up the investigations by clicking and getting the changes happened by the security, also with the IT operations. So for an example, if you are in the downtime and one of your IT operations guys has maintained or closed something in your critical infrastructure, you can trigger what exactly is the change, and you can audit the footprint of this user. And ensuring this and system availability, you need to ensure the changes and you need to ensure the authorization of these changes. Maybe the user is legitimate, but the change is not legitimate. Maybe the change is not legitimate, but the user who done this, it's not legitimate. So controlling also the changes that compromise the systems by giving you real-time detection of file integrity monitoring across your file systems, which is Windows or Linux, can give you, if you need to enable the real-time detection and give what exactly that maybe it's compromised my system. So all of these information, it can help the IT operation and validate the changes and reduce unplanned work. And by integrating this solution with the ITSM solution to tell you what's the authorized versus the unauthorized changes. How? For an example, if you have a ServiceNow, if you have HP, if you have Remedy, if you have products like ITSM solutions, we can integrate Tripwire Enterprise to detect and validate the ticket versus the actual changes that may be happening in your system. For an example, if someone of your administrators has opened a ticket to check that there is a file need to be changed, 1, 2, 3, and during his session, he's changed another ports or change another files. We can detect the unauthorized changes and tell the ITSM there is unauthorized changes happening. So we can tell you there is an authorized change and also there is an unauthorized change versus your ticket. So you can differentiate between this. Know what's happening in your environment by making a vulnerability scan or asset discovery by other product, which is IP360, and give you full information about the changes by by Tripwire Enterprise and about the changes, and you can log all of these critical assets about the changes and vulnerabilities, know what exactly your environment, know what exactly the changes happening to prevent yourself. And even if you think about the malwares, it's any malware, it's about a change. So if you think I'm secured and you don't apply the change management, you are not in the right direction. Why? Because the malware, it's about a change. So for an example, if malware hit your system by mistake, so it will change something in your registry keys, in your critical files. Maybe he add users, maybe he changed something in your Active Directory. So based on this, we can integrate with the Tripwire Enterprise with all of these systems and detect what exactly the changes when this change is happening. So for an example, if there is some services has been open, so I can tell you, yes, there is a service, for an example, HTTP auto proxy service has been enabled. So for an example, this kind of configurations I found in the machine, and this is not authorized. So all of these, it can help you, the IT operations and security, and maintain your compliance. So Tripwire Enterprise can help you to, one, baselining all of the information or the critical files and folders across your platforms. So baselining can help you to collect the information and collect the configuration of your operating systems and network infrastructure and databases and VMware environment. And for an example, also the Linux machines and Unix machines. You can get all of these configurations and tell me what's the current state of this current configuration. And based on this, you can make an assessment and you can compare the current state with your desired state, because you know the current configuration and you know what exactly, if there is a modification, you can build up from this baseline, you can view the history. And you can get the detection when this change is happening and absolutely do full inspection to know who and when and what and exactly why, because you know the full information about the change and you know who done this change and so on. And also the remediation. As we said, we can tell you this is information need to be fixed, so you need to remediate this by clicking this script or running this script. And you can do automation part by taking a manual tasks and implement some security scripts in order to implement the automation part. And the integration, we can digging with you to integrate, for an example, with your SIEM solution name it any vendor. For an example, Logarithm, ArcSight, Splunk, QRadar, any vendor, we can integrate with him to get the changes that's already we collected from the machine, send it to your SIEM solution. Even it's not like this. We will not send all the changes that already we detect. We change or we collect information that you already desired for you. For an example, if you have some critical changes, we can send it just only to your SIEM solution. If you have some rules and you need to send it just on the SIEM solution, you can do some filtering and sorting, send it before sending to the SIEM solution. So it's just not only sending all the information, you can apply some filtering and sorting for your log files, then send it to your SIEM solution. Another integration, we can do some integration with your updating servers. For an example, the Microsoft Windows updates. For an example, the Linux Virt and Yum repositories. So based on this, we can help you to reduce the noise sometimes in your critical files. So if there is a Windows updates happening, so we can tell you that all of these files related to the Windows updates. If there is something related to Linux updates, we can tell you, yeah, this file is related to the Linux updates. And after this, we will make automatic promotion for all of these changes. We accept these changes because it's a legitimate change related to the Windows updates. So you can reduce this by the integration with our application called DSR, Dynamic Software Reconciliation. And finally, as we said, we can integrate with your ticketing system, as we said, ServiceNow or Remedy, to validate the changes across your network and infrastructure versus the tickets open. So all of these give you full visibility when this incident happened, and you can get the full history, and you can utilize the solution to get as soon as and as maximum as you can from the benefits, what's happened on my network and so on. So let's simulate something and do a demo based on these best practices. But before we do this, I would like to mention something about the high-level architecture of the Tripwire Enterprise. So Tripwire Enterprise has two main components, which is the Tripwire Enterprise Console Server, and second one is the SQL or the Oracle database, which is the connected database with the Tripwire software. So all the changes that we are collecting from your information, from your environment, it's saved on your SQL or Oracle database. So the Tripwire administrator will log in to the Tripwire Enterprise console using a web-based connection, encrypted using HTTPS, to connect with the Tripwire Enterprise and configure the systems and configure the reports and manage the Tripwire Enterprise. Then the Tripwire Enterprise will connect with your servers and desktops through the agents that we will install across, for an example, the Windows, across the Linux. And if we mention Linux, we need to mention, for example, Ubuntu, Red Hat, SUSE, for an example, Debian. All of these, it's covered by the Tripwire Enterprise. And if we spoke about the Unix systems, for an example, Solaris machines, AIX, we can also integrate with these and install our agents on it. And about the desktops, for an example, the Windows 7, Windows 10 devices, so we can, even the Mac desktops, we can install an agent on it. So based on these agents, we can connect and collect the information about the changes through the agent and help you to figure what exactly the critical changes or the critical files on all of these systems. Based on this, we can build up some modules. For an example, the Active Directory and the SQL. So the Active Directory, we will gonna communicate with the Active Directory using the LDAP. So based on the agent installed in your Active Directory, we will gonna communicate with your LDAP server using a username and password to collect the LDAP attributes. And with the SQL or the Oracle, we will connect using a username and password. And absolutely in the network devices like the firewalls and network routers, switches, access points, we cannot install an agent. So based on this, we can connect with them using SSH or Telnet. So based on this, we will we will trigger the configuration, and we will collect the configuration based on SSH communication, and you will provide the Tripwire Enterprise just a username and password in order to authenticate and log into the system. And based on this, you can collect the information and digging deep with the system and collect the network logs and connect the network configurations. And this is the components of Tripwire Enterprise. And based on this, we can integrate with third-party on-prem or on-cloud applications, or we can get connected with a Tripwire Connect reporting server. So Tripwire Connect can help you to get information and generate multiple reports and thousands of reports built in this machine in order to help you to customize reports. If you are interested to get the Connect addition with the Tripwire Enterprise, you can. And if you are not interested, through Tripwire Enterprise built in with thousands of reports, you can generate and you can customize any report you need for Tripwire or the changes that you are collecting on. So this is the high-level architecture, and let's go for the demo. So I'm here opening the Tripwire Enterprise, and I have seen there is a changes, suspicious changes, and changes by date and approval. What's meaning approval on Tripwire Enterprise? So for an example, the authorized or unauthorized changes. What meaning of this? Once you receive a change from Tripwire Enterprise, you will figure out, yeah, this is a legitimate or not legitimate by clicking the information about the changes. So for an example here, I have opened 27 authorized changes. For an example, you see, yeah, this is an etc SSH or SSHD configuration has been modified, or SE Linux has been modified. So by these users, they done some changes. So for example, you will receive an alert like this. Once you receive an alert like this and you know who done the change, you can clicking and digging deep. Yeah, what's the configuration has been done on my SE Linux? So you will find, yeah, this is SE Linux now. It's now enforcing. So now I am applying the SE Linux, which is legitimate, and this is the user who done this, who is authorized to do this kind of change. So based on this, you're gonna promote and apply the promotion of these changes, and you're gonna accept it. Another example here, this is etc.resolve.com. For an example, you will see this is name server 8.8.8.8 has been added. So based on this, you will find, yeah, this is approved by the system, and you will approve it because it's legitimate. This is the public IP of Google DNS server, so it's legitimate to add this. So another example here is the etc hosts file in the Linux. So you will find, yeah, this is IP. Maybe it's legitimate to be the part of your hosts file. In the Windows, you will find there is, for an example, enumerate some users. So for an example, you will find there is users has been added like this to your domain. So it's legitimate to do this or add these users. For an example, there is some Windows services has been removed, which is HTTP auto proxy service has been removed from your servers from Windows services. So in this example, it has been modified, and based on this, it's accepted. Here in the Active Directory, there is a remote desktop has been changed from this user has been deleted from the remote desktop. Maybe it's legitimate. So based on this, you can approve these changes. So every element you found at Tripwire, it's unauthorized till you authorize them. So let's take an example by switching Tripwire Enterprise or this report to something called Elements View. So in the Elements View, you can clicking in any of these elements and you can clicking in the history and you can digging deep what exactly the history of this file. So based on this host file, you can find from 2014 to 2018, there's a multiple changes happening, and all of these changes, it's already triggered and saved. And based on this, you can clicking differential and get differential view to know the forensics part of it. So based on this, the first version of 2014, and this is the last version, this kind of IPs was found. So you can, by clicking any of these, you can trigger what's exactly the differences. So you find that this is differences between the last version and this date. And once you click like this, you can open this file and you can get the full content of the file. So you can get this file very easy and you can export the file. So in the Tripwire Enterprise, as I said, there is a changes. You can switch to the elements view. And once you make the elements, you can, once you see the changes, so you can, by the way, you can promote these changes, as we said, and promote it to the baseline. So once you make it or approve it, the change, you can put a comment, for an example, this change is authorized from a security team. You can save your comment as a template if you want. So you can apply, this is apply as a template. So for an example, security team approval. So based on this, you can save the change and save the promotion comment. And based on this, you can make the promotion for this change. About the unauthorized changes, we will see hundreds of unauthorized changes. So for an example, here in unauthorized changes, you can find this file has been added. For example, pipsuite.sh has been added by the user called Vader. So I can clicking on this file and getting the metadata of the file and can get the content of the file also itself. So I can see there is a file, the bin.sh, and there is a script on this file. So based on this, when you see something like this by this user, you will find yourself, maybe this is a change, it's not legitimate. So I will not promote this change. Another example here, in the SSHD configuration, there is a user has been, or sorry, there is a configuration has been modified by this user. So by clicking on this, you will find, yes, there is a promote root login, yes, in this script, and this is an SSHD configuration element has been changed. In the rsyslog configuration file, you will find this is forward all logs to your to new home, which is unauthorized done change by this user. And the SE Linux configuration in this machine, you will find this an SE Linux has been disabled by this user. Unauthorized change may be happening in your local firewall rules. For an example, here there is a firewall rule called Bingo has been enabled. So based on this, you will figure out what exactly the changes, who done this change, when this change happening, and you will get full information about the detailed elements and the history of the elements. So again, if we click the elements view, we can clicking on any of these and you can see the history of the element from the beginning. So you can differentiate between this one and this one, for an example, and you can clicking what exactly the changes or the difference between the old and the new. So To know the current state, it's easy, but know the current state versus the old state of the machine and applying the best practices, it's very difficult. So because maybe you are not secured now, but from 1 month ago you were secured. Based on the configuration changes that happen on your servers, you will figure out, and the history of it, you can figure out where or when I am secured. There is a use case about the security. Here in the Tripwire Enterprise, we can detect some suspicious changes. For an example here, in this Windows 2008, we found 15 total changes. And if you conserve on this, starting from this, you will find that there is a file, there is a user called Vader has downloaded something in your downloads, which is checkdisk.cmd. If you open this, you will figure out what exactly the file content. So based on this, you will find this is a copy of netcat.exe to this DLL file and injected. So based on this, this is 100% malware. And you can click and there is a remote desktop need to be or enabled. There is a 63,000 port enabled and firewall rule bingo and so on. So by Tripwire Enterprise, you can get information about all of these information, the malicious activity done by this user. So based on this, you can figure out, for an example, there is a change in your DLL file and there is a permissions has been added to your administrators and so on. And another example for the Windows services, so you will find there is a service name called event log has been deleted. And for the firewall state, you can find there is a port 63,000 TCP has been enabled. And for the listening ports, you will find this is a port has been open and listening. And for the registry key, you will find this is a registry key has been changed by this value. So all of these changes related to that one we are starting with, which is a checkdisk.cmd. So by clicking this, you can find that there is information happen on my critical folders and critical registry keys based on this file that has been downloaded by Vader. On the Active Directory, maybe we are interested also to see the modification and changes maybe happen in your Active Directory. For an example, we will find this is the domain admins. There is a modification by this user has been added to your domain admins group. So I'm sure this user, it's not legitimate to be a member of your domain admins. So this kind of change, maybe not authorized or malicious activity by one of anti-malware solutions, by malware solutions or viruses. So something like this, it will affect 100% your infrastructure. Another example here, which is the SQL. Here in the SQL, we can trigger and help you to figure out what the security has been enabled or what the security has been changed on your database. For example, there is a user right now, it's called, this user has been added. For an example here, I can clicking on this and I can find this is a user, the create login for this user, and this is the password, default password, and this is database he has get access to. And who done this change? So you will get this is a user. So now you can correlate something in your mind. This is a user who was added in the domain admins. Now he makes the changes. Maybe it's related to the malware that has been triggered or figured out by Tripwire with a downloads folder. So all of these, it's a malicious activity. Another example here, which is a query table of query of your tables. For example, this is a change. So for example, you will see these columns has been changed to this information, which is column salary, which is changed to this value. Another example with this, which is the login hand, which is also came with this user. So this kind of information, absolutely, it's not authorized. Absolutely, it's maybe affect your machines with the security. By clicking this, you will get what's the suspicious changes, what's the changes approved, what's not approved. And by filtering these changes, you need application, as we said, like DSR, to filter what exactly the changes related to the Windows updates or Linux updates. For an example, the Windows patches, I can get what's the authorized patches, and I can make auto promotion for all of these patches. For an example, all of these sys files has been modified by the Windows because it's making the Windows updates. So Tripwire, no, this is the Windows updates. And based on this, he automatic promotion or automatic promote and approve this change. So you will not receive alerts like this because already this application can help you to figure out what exactly the change versus the Windows updates. Also, it can be for the Linux updates. So you will find there is an authorized updates happening in your system. So for an example, you will see this is the element has been removed or modified by these users, and all of these it's related to Linux updates. So for an example, you will find this is the attributes and this is the content of the file, and based on this, all of these files has been changed and more modified, and this is part of Linux update. So this kind of information, it's very important to know with the Tripwire enterprise and to detect the unauthorized changes and also filter the Windows updates and the Linux updates. And based on this, we can swap to another module which is very important to the guys who are implementing the Mitre. So as a part of the security, you can also implement the Mitre. So by making a security hardened for the Mitre, you need to, the agent already installed for hard integrity model, it's same agent, he will getting information and help you for the Mitre. So for an example, here we can open the Mitre results for Windows 2016 and generating some reports. So for an example here, the access token manipulation, this is in the Windows 2016, and this is the nodes that are affected, and this is the pass tests in this Mitre technique, and this is the field tests. The accessibility features, this is all of them, it's field tests. So let's take an example of one of the field tests for an example. So here, the accessibility features. So the configure network level authentication require user authentication for remote connections by using network level authentication need to be enabled. So based on this, you need to require authentication and level of authentication when you do, for an example, a remote desktop. So by clicking this, you will find yourself, yeah, maybe this failed in my machine, and this is the remediation steps I need to apply in order to fix this kind of secure configuration. Another example, which is in access token manipulation, for an example, replace a process level token, network and local service. So for example, here we will tell you what's the test's information and why this test failed, because this missing configuration need to be implemented, and what's the actual value we found in your system. So by clicking or getting the actual value, it will help you to figure out why I am not secured with the secure configuration, or maybe I am maybe I'm failing to one of the security configuration, because these actual values we found on your system, and based on this information need to be implemented and done. Another example here, for an example here in the brute force. So in the brute force, here, one of the field tests, the account lookup threshold is less than or equal to 10. So by clicking this, I found a look bad count, which is 0, okay? And based on this is the remediation steps you need to apply. So this is a good example in order to help you to maintain your security by applying the secure configuration management. You can help you if you have some of these technical control or secure configuration not implemented. So we can scan your machines and we can give you the date of the scanning and why you are failed, because you'll be getting this actual configuration, how you can do the remediation steps. Another example here, which is change default file association. So this is a 302 pass tests and one of the failed tests. Let's take, for an example, one of the failed tests. Microsoft PowerShell script shell commands, and this is a command. Commands need to be done in your system. So let's take another example because it's not clearly direct to explain. And let's take another example in the for an example in the Red Hat. Here, for an example, the account discovery. This is 5 tests and 0 failed tests. The brute force, let's take the brute force, 6 failed tests. Maybe there is something interesting here. Here in the brute force, verify that the root account is locked until it's released by an administrator when exceed the number of unsuccessful login attempts, which is 100% right. Based on this test is failed on this machine because this actual value, it's not right extracted. Based on this, it's failed. Another example here, verify that the system disables account after 3 or less consecutive unsuccessful login attempts. So after 3 or less consecutive unsuccessful login attempts, okay, you need to disable the account. So based on this, you are failed on this test. Verify that the system is configured to disable accounts after the same example. Okay, same example here. Verify that the system locks accounts after 3 or less consecutive unsuccessful login and password authentication. Okay, and so on. So related all of this, it's released and the login attempts to the brute force. So here's a clear command history. Verify bash history file is appended only. So based on this, we will get information about what's exactly the test, why this test is failed, and what's the actual value. So this is an example of the how to apply the security and apply getting the changes versus the security benchmarks like Mitre attack. Let's take an example of one of the benchmarks that's very famous in Saudi Arabia, which is the NCA. As you know, guys, that's the NCA. It's one of the local regulations in Saudi Arabia for the financial sector. You know also that's already they have 2 important documents re-released. the ECC controls, which is essential cybersecurity controls, and critical cybersecurity for critical infrastructure. So this is document number 2. But the main one, which is the ECC controls, which is essential cybersecurity, this is the main one, and have a lot of things need to be implemented. And you know also that the ECC controls have 5 domains. The biggest domain, it's domain number 2, called the cybersecurity defense. So the cybersecurity defense, it's have configurations need to be implemented. For an example, here in the information system and information processing facilities protection, we found this is the nodes, and this is a pass test, and this is a fail test. Based on the fail test, I can set, for an example, the restrict use of secure handling of external storage media. So you need to apply some certain configuration. For an example, here, turn off the autoplay. For an example, default behavior of autorun. Don't execute any autorun commands. For an example, don't automatically play media of all drivers, and so on. So all of these, it's failed in your Windows domain member machine. And this is the exact numbers of the NCA. So you will find in section number 2.3.3 the cybersecurity requirements, and 2.3.2 or -2, which is the restrict use of secure handling storage media. So if you open right now the ECC controls, and you will find same numbers here. Another example here, which is in the identity and access management. So you can find this is identity and access management. So here I can find here in 2.2.3 there is a 41 fail tests. Here let's take an example here, which is, for an example, user authentication based on username and password. So based on there is a number of fail tests we have found. So based on, for example, terminal service always prompt the client password open connections need to be enabled. Require password the computer wakes up battery need to be enabled. When a computer wakes up and plug in, which is a charger, need to be enabled. And for example, for all the enabled account configured to require passwords, which is right, need to be enabled. Verify that all account configured password to expire, which is right. Verify that the password built-in administrator account is changed every 60 days, which is right. So all of this information is missing from your servers. All of this information need to be implemented. So by clicking and getting information about this kind of secure configurations, you can getting information why I am not secured and how can I remediate all of these parts by running these scripts or send it to your IT operations. And also Tripwire came with this to customize your security policy. Sometimes organizations follow NCA or follow ISO 271, but they have some secure configurations differ from the NCA or the ISO 27. So for an example, I have something in my internal compliance said that, for an example, verify that the password administrator is changed at least every 60 days. For an example, I have it 50 days. I need to change this. So by clicking on this, you can change the value here from 60 days to 50 days as you want. Another example here, if I click the minimum password length is greater than or equal to 14 characters, maybe I don't need to 14 characters, I need 20 characters. So for example, here I can click on this and I get the conditions and change the value from 14 character to 20 character, very easy. So by clicking on this, you can change these values very easy in Tripwire Enterprise, and you can getting these values done and customize your own policy. So the policy customization in Tripwire Enterprise, one of the interesting parts, because you can very easy customize your policies. You can copy paste from any of the compliance already we have, the standards already we have. You can paste it in your folder and you can build your own policy. And I will show you how we can do this. So for an example here, if I click in the policies here, I can open, for an example, creating one of the policies, for example, POC. I can clicking any of the ISO 27 or CIS compliance, for an example, in the Windows. I can get all of these policies, for example, here in the account lookup policy. So I can clicking like this and I can make it duplicate, and then I can move it, this control, to POC. So account lookup duration was greater than 15 or equal to 0. So here I'm opening my this one here. So by clicking this, I can getting the values. I can change it very easy. I can do anything I need. So based on this, this is the good of Tripwire Enterprise to change, to do anything you want in your policy customization, and you can do anything you want. So based on this, you can make, or you can edit and make your own compliance. And absolutely, you can generate your compliance policies against CIS compliance or against ISO 27. So for example, you are 70% compliant from CIS, you are 20% compliance from PCI, you are, for example, 80% compliance from ISO 27, and you can generate multiple reports, and you can see what's your compliance versus the other compliances. And this is a very powerful thing. Even in Tripwire Enterprise, you can edit these compliances and you can add your own conditions. You see here, I am opening here the same dialog, and I can open here, I can add a lot of conditions here, and I can find this is part of, for an example here, access and getting information like this. I can getting and modify the archive, the auditing, the create, all of these parts. I can getting information very easy, and you can make and or gate, or you can make it or gate and so on. So you can build the secure configuration policy. And by clicking this, or we can do this, some customers ask Tripwire, we need to implement some security controls. And for an example, some of the customers have some of registry keys. You need to apply or scan for these registry keys, is it implemented or not? So based on this, we can help these type of customers to build the secure configuration, and we can apply and we can getting these registry keys, the values, calculating the MD5, scanning your machines for these hash values for registry keys and directions. Based on this, we can tell you this, for an example, 10 machines applying your security hash values, and registry keys are implemented, and this not implemented your security registry keys. So we can build for the customers. If you are interested to build it by yourself, no problem. If you need our help on this, also we are happy to help you for these parts. Another example here for ISO 271. So here in the ISO 271, we can getting a lot of reports. So for an example, here in the Windows, we can generating reports and know exactly what's the nodes affected with the failed tests and pass tests. For example, here in the access control, I found 31 failed tests. Maybe it's interesting here to clicking and see, for an example here, machine inactivity limit 900 or fewer seconds. So for an example here, I found this test is failed on the machine, and I can getting how can I remediate this part. Built in the guest account renamed. So for an example here, I can found, yeah, this is the guest account, or is already renamed or already found with the same value, which is guest, and need to be renamed in order to avoid yourself, for example, for the password guessing and so on, and user enumeration and so on. So based on this, you will get this kind of information need to be implemented. Deny login service as a guests, and so on, from a couple of secure configurations need to be implemented. Another use case, we can build it. Sometimes this customer said, I need for this to execute some policies. I don't need to get this policy to be scanned. So it's very easy in Tripwire Enterprise to execute this policy. For example, account threshold is less than or equal to 10. Maybe you are in downtime and you need to change something in the operating system, and you don't need this control to be scanned and shows it's failed. So based on this, you can waiving this by clicking and making as a test and getting information. This is, for an example, excluded, and this is granted by the user, and this is a description. For an example, this is excluded from our test and accepted from the compliance team. So based on this, you can making a never expire, or you can make it an expiration date on time. Why I need expiration? Sometimes, as I said, it's maybe related to the downtime. You need to implement, or you need to exclude this for a certain period. Based on this, you can, after 1 day or 2 days, I need to scan it or scan the servers again. Or, I need this failed policy never expire, so I will not use this policy anymore. Once I click this, which nodes I need to apply this. So you can select your nodes that's already failed, or you don't need to apply this policy test on it. So for example, maybe it's for all the systems, for the ISO 27 servers, or maybe you need to apply for just only a couple of servers. So it's very easy here to do it in the Tripwire Enterprise. So to achieve security, to achieve compliance, to help with IT operations with the who and when and what exactly is the change, help them to give them the full remediation guidance, the security with applying and know the exact changes, and know also what exactly the changes authorized and unauthorized change. And you can also help them. We can also help them to, for the Mitre, for example, and getting the secure configurations, and applying secure configurations can help you to achieve security and compliance. So as we said from the beginning, organizations interested to apply the security and compliance. So Tripwire Enterprise is the key software to help the organization to achieve that. Thank you for attending the presentation. And if you have any questions, let us know. And thank you again, and Ramadan Kareem, and have a good day.